Hey, kia ora guys, Kristen Harper here, and welcome to Mana Collab series of interviews talking to Māori and Pasifika leaders. And this is all around the one question. Now, today's a really special one for me. I'm up to about 30 interviews, but today's interviews, is one I've been looking forward to doing for a long time. So joining me today is my cousin, Jay Stevens, and Jay's been, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but Jay's over the last few years has been through absolute bloody hell. Was in an accident in about 2018 and was told that he was never going to walk again. And but Jay has sort of defied those odds. And like I said, I'm not going to go into too much, and we'll let that be part of that conversation. But Jay, awesome to have you on, cuz.
Yeah, thank you very much, cuz. Thank you.
Yeah, man of many words. He's an introvert. So, Jay, if you could, I guess before I get into that question, normally the context to these series with Māori and Pasifika leaders is that one question. And that one question is normally, what was the number one skill or attribute that helped you to create your success? And there's always those speed bumps and all that on the way. But I think for you, cuz, it's really more around that, what has been that attribute or that skill, not even skill, what is that that's got you to where you are now? But let's take a bit of a step back. If you could, I guess, give a wee bit of background, on yourself, and just tell us about the accident from the start to where you are now.
Yeah, so background about myself, I'm 37 years old, and at the start of 2018, I was working at a medical device company, and we had our work conference out at Ayers Rock, and any of the top performing salespeople, they were actually gifted helicopter flights around Ayers Rock. And I was lucky enough to receive one of those flights. And unfortunately, my pilot had only just received his license. And as we went up in the helicopter, he actually stalled the helicopter about 120 meters up into the sky. So once that stalled, of course, there's no breakdown lanes up there. So we actually just fell pretty much just straight out of the sky. So straight down to the red earth. And of course, we were stuck very far inland because the helicopter had actually flown into the terrain. There's no roads to get there. So we were stuck out there for about 3 or 4 hours. And of course, I had a pretty severe spinal cord injury, along with a lot of other breaks throughout the body. But of course, spinal cord injury was the main one. Surgery after that. And, my fracture is called a burst fracture. So it's essentially just burst straight back into the spinal cord. The vertebrae just gets smashed out into the spinal cord. So it was a very severe fracture. I crushed about 80% of my spinal cord. And then, of course, the rehab journey year after year. But I guess the main one was in the first 6 to 12 months is when you get most of your motor control back. And unfortunately, in that time, I didn't get anything back at all, only just the smallest little bit of my hip flexor. So medically, the prospects were not very good. Obviously, I was told that I wasn't going to walk again by multiple doctors and physios, but I essentially refused to buy into, of course, what their diagnosis was. And I essentially set up my own training program. I knew I needed to do more. And so bigger problems require bigger solutions. And so I essentially pretty much put my own training program together. And lucky enough, here I am 5 years later. I started walking after 3.5 years, again with some braces on my legs. And here I am, it'll be 5 years in January, and I can walk anywhere from 3 to 10 kilometers if I have to.
Which is fucking outstanding, man. And I remember when we got that call, and they basically said that, it was pretty, it wasn't the best. It was pretty. I remember the sort of mail and the doctors and that saying that for that first sort of couple of weeks, it was pretty touch and go, whether you live or not. And buddy, it was yeah, it was shit. It's just the fucking worst news, eh? But to see where you've got to, you know, I guess having those early conversations, yeah, even about 3 or 4 months after the accident, and to see where you've got to and now is nothing short of outstanding. Like, and it sort of inspired me, and I know with the rest of our whānau, you know, all of us just have seen all that progression that you've done over the last couple of years, Jay, and where you're getting into and into your next journey, which is awesome to see. And I know when we've spoken about it a lot, you know, you've had a lot of those dark times. Can you talk me through that, guys? Like, talk me through how you've dealt with that, because you've had a lot of shit, obviously there's been a lot of that mental tennis that you've gone through to bloody deal with all this shit. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah, so like I said, I just given the circumstances around everything, like I said, there was negligence involved with the helicopter crash. And of course, you know, in an instant, having pretty much your whole life turned upside down, you're just about to buy a house, recently married, just had an 18-month-old son. So, you know, you're ticking those proverbial boxes of life. And then all of a sudden, just bang, all flipped on its head upside down. So just the shock of dealing with that. And one of the main things for me was I just never wanted to be a victim or have the PTSD from that affect me in a very, very severe way. You know, I've got young kids, I've got a wife, and I wanted the best out of life. So I actually did a therapy. It's called EMDR therapy.
Yeah.
Called eye movement desensitization reprogramming. And it's essentially a type of therapy which can basically take you back into the traumatic event, which was obviously the helicopter crash. And as with a lot of other traumas, a lot of the stuff stems back to childhood. And, you know, those two were marrying up. And of course, I've done a lot of deep work. And as it came to obviously the latter years of the recovery, it was more about uncovering rather than adding to yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of like peeling back the layers on your personality, what makes you tick. And one of the main things was from doing the EMDR work was especially the rehabilitation journey. That's just long, arduous work. So kind of going in, and like I said, it's peeling back the layers to find out who you are at your core, really. And I found that that was probably one of the main things, and it was getting a lot more comfortable with my own fears and getting a lot more comfortable with, they call it dark side energy. You know, Tim Grover, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant's trainer, he calls it their dark side energy. And, you know, if it's used correctly, you know, it's a superpower. You know, there's a lot of times, you know, hours and hours of rehab work. And like I said, months, years of that, you know, you need something that's going to push you when nothing else will. And a lot of the times it's not the positive quote that you read on the wall. A lot of the times it's something deeper inside you that's going to get you through, you know, a lot of those hard times, you know, which require a lot of discipline and consistency when you don't want to do those things and you're not seeing much progress. That's the big thing with a spinal injury. The progress is so minuscule versus, of course, you know, able-bodied progress with any sort of physical endeavor.
And a lot of that mindset come from, you know, when you were younger, you've always been into athletics and got to a good level in athletics, and then surfing, you've always been surfing, buddy, surfing around the world, and just always been so bloody physical. And I bet that would have been an absolute head fuck, sort of coming from always being so active and then sort of going through this journey as well, that must have played into that dark side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the hardest one. The not being able to whack on your running shoes and go out the front door for a run. Like I said, a lot of my activity was all simple. It was either surfing or long distance running. You know, they were my two outlets. And to have both of them taken away, that was very, very difficult. I got into long distance swimming for a little bit. So that was a bit of a substitute there while my legs weren't working. But yeah, definitely the stress reliever of that. But there's one thing I don't mind. I don't mind hanging out in the pain cave. I don't mind paying rent in the pain cave, doing long, arduous activity. So that was probably a positive. I actually viewed pain as positive with the rehab because, like I said, I have no muscles on my legs. I can't feel my left leg neurologically. So the whole retraining.
To be fair, you never really had muscles in your legs anyway. So
So yeah, just the whole retraining process.
Yeah.
Like I actually enjoyed that because number one, I was up out of the chair, even though, like I said, I was in frames and everything like that. But you know, pain was progress for me. So that was one thing I did not mind was, you know, the long, arduous work of that. So it's so.
And I remember when you were talking about that deep working that you did, and then when I was over in Sydney last time, and we we're talking about the remembering everything from the accident to the sounds to, you know, when you hit the ground, and then the noise, the people, the smells, and all that sort of stuff. And then you said you were stuck on the ground for what, a number of hours before you got sort of backed out, was it?
Yeah, so we were stuck out in the out there at the crash site for about 3.5 hours because obviously the terrain, there was no road to get to it. So they a helicopter came in and flew out their own pilot, and then of course I was waiting there for about 3.5 hours and no pain relief because I had my blood pressure was too low. So it was an interesting few hours out there.
So where you are now, cuz like what is that, what does like life look like for you now, and what are the next steps for you? What is that, what are you, what do the next couple of years look like for you?
It's funny when you have stuff like I said, it takes sometimes these things to happen to light that fire. Like I said, I was ticking the typical societal boxes. House was going good, work was going good. And to have, like I said, just your basic physical life taken away. You know, I couldn't even pick up my kids. I couldn't go for a walk, couldn't hold their hands, couldn't take them on the beach. So things like that. So now that I've regained the ability to do those things, I wear braces on my legs, and like I walk with walking sticks.
Yeah.
But I'd say my energy for life has just turned up 10x. So I'm looking to move in the public speaking space, and just like I said, your passion for life, when you have stuff like that taken away and the manner that it was taken away, like I said, I've gone the other way now. I've got the energy of a 15-year-old at the moment. So looking to move in the public speaking space. And if there's anything positive to come out of it, I could convey that message, and whatever shape that takes. Like I said, I'm 110 miles an hour at it. I've essentially had to start a new career now. I'm unable to perform my old role. I've spent 10 years building a medical sales career. That's actually stopped now. So I'm looking to move into the public speaking space. And of course, after the accident, I've had a pretty close affinity with medicinal cannabis. Obviously, with my injury as well, I get very bad nerve pain. And that's actually helped me as well versus the typical pharmaceutical route that they always push.
Yeah, so bloody push, all right. And the other thing I know we're speaking about as well is, getting into that mindset coaching and stuff like that as well, which I think is all part and parcel. And I'll be sharing some, the first talk that Jay did. Well, once this goes live, so if I say tomorrow, it doesn't really matter, so I won't say it, but I'll be sharing the first talk that you actually did, which I've already shared with a number of people close to me. With being your first one, you'd think you've been doing it for years. So I look forward to seeing that journey for you as you do get into that speaking realm, and also around that coaching as well, because I think through what you've been through, you'll have a shitload of value to add to, I guess, people that have been in certain situations, but also within that corporate sphere, because it's all, a lot of it is all around that mindset side of it. And one thing that you said earlier, talking about that dark matter, talking about the, finding that energy or finding that other thing. One thing that you and I have spoken about is Jay is, as my cousin, is Ngai Tahu, but Jay's grown up, was born in Australia, grown up in Australia. So my mother's brother is Jay's dad. So Jay's never really had that connection to, I guess, to that Māori side. And it's something we've been talking about a lot lately, and looking forward to sharing this. And Jay's also got a few other, I'll leave that for you to say. Well, what are the goals that you're looking at doing in the next few years, in addition to your public speaking and that?
Yes, of course, public speaking would be obviously just sharing a message around the recovery. But like I said, I'm a sucker for punishment, and I'll be looking to get up Mount Kosciuszko at the end of the year, obviously the 13 kilometre route. And then at the end of 2023, I'm going to be at the top of Everest Base Camp. So 130 kilometre trek. So I'm not allowed to take my wheelchair up there. I still use a wheelchair at home because if I don't have braces on my legs, obviously I've got no motor control from my leg down.
Yeah.
So they're essentially floppy. So Everest Base Camp, that's the next one, 130 kilometre trek. So that's what I'm training for now. So
and we're putting this out to the world now too as well. So
no going back now.
Being that this is your I guess first, sort of interview, and I really thank you for the opportunity to do that. I know we've been talking about this for a long time, and really excited to see the next journey, Cuz, and support you in any way. But hey, just mindful of the time. Jay, appreciate your time. I look forward to sharing this, and look forward to seeing your next journey and seeing what you create.
Thank you very much, because I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Cool. Ciao.